Hello and welcome. You're listening to Let's go again.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome. What am I doing now? Hello and welcome.
We've all been there, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right, let's go again. Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Nordic Takedown, a Star Wars Unlimited podcast dropping weekly episodes every Thursday. This must be Thursday then. No, you can listen any day you like. We're on all platforms. My name is Victor, and with me today, I've got Steven.
Hello. So happy to be back here. Thank you for inviting me.
Always great to have you here, mate. And we've got a guest today. We've got Speci joining us from the UK. Please, who are you?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Nice to be here. I'm Speci. I make content for other card games, mainly Disney Lorcana at the moment. And I've been playing Star Wars Unlimited for the last few weeks, basically taking on a challenge to try and go from complete noob to complete pro in a short period of time. And really been enjoying the game a lot.
Yeah, we first met you at Malmö Game Week in August, half a year ago or so.
Yeah,
because you were streaming the Lorcana games and we were sitting next to you streaming the Star Wars games, and that's how we first met you. And now you're on to Star Wars as well. Great to have you here.
thanks.
So today's episode, we're going to do some talking about how Star Wars compares to other CCGs and like, because we all played other games before, and see what we think it's like and how it compares and how it translates knowledge from the different games. We're also going to talk about the sectors, the sector championships that's been in Milan and Liverpool, and also briefly maybe touch on the Denver one, because you, Steven, went to Milan, and Speci, you were in the Liverpool one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't have the opportunity to go to either, so I'll just be so interested in hearing your thoughts on what it was like. Also, we will briefly end with talking a little bit about what's coming up, upcoming tournaments that we're excited about, and formats and things that might come in the future here. But before we get into any of all that, we had some extremely interesting news drop just half an hour ago. We had a FFG stream. What do you think, Steve? What was it like?
Well, everybody's been talking about it. I think barely even before Milan had started. Of course, we did see the suspension of Jango Fett, the cunning leader. Along with him, they did take down Triple Dark Raid as well, and also DJ, mainly singing in the Han 1 yellow deck.
Yeah.
They talked a bit about it. Most people saw it coming. The question was just, would it only be Jango, or would they take other cards down as well? They were arguing that even without its partner, so for Jango, even without Triple Dark Raid, Jango would still just be too strong with all the new strong vehicle, or just strong units in the Jump to Light Speed set in IG 2000, War Juggernaut, and Devastator. He was just too strong of a hero, being able to exhaust all of the opponent's board, more or less. And that's not the most fun to play against, and that was their main argument for this change as well. Triple Dark Raid, well, without Jango, they still thought it was too strong of a card. Before set 4, there weren't too many good targets to hit, so it was a higher risk-reward environment, but again, with the same cards that I just mentioned for Jango, it just became too much.
Yeah, I think so. And with Piet, you can get up to 4 resources discount with it. It's just insane. It's too limiting. Also going forward, it limits the design space too much, I think. And like they said on the stream, they knew Triple Dark Raid was in the meta, but they wouldn't like to have that restrict what they could do with vehicles for this set, and that makes sense. I think Triple Dark Raid would just a poorly designed card, but so fun to play. So
it is a fun card.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to give up the fun to have more fun. That's just the way of things.
I can say I've only played against Triple Dark Raid and I did not have fun.
No,
That
yeah.
was a card I never want to see again. Oh my goodness.
No, it's
Also,
just
now you're
poor
here to
design,
say.
actually.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, you've been on other card games, Lorcana, but I assume probably other games as
Yeah.
well. Restricted lists or suspensions or bans like this is pretty common in CCGs. And what do you think about what you heard today?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because literally just yesterday we had our first ever ban list for Lorcana. We had like a card errated previously, which was essentially banned
Mhm.
because it was completely changed and made terrible. But we had our first bans yesterday, so it's kind of interesting to see the different ways that they've handled it. And what I like from both games really is that it's just effective essentially immediately. Both
Yeah.
games had like their sets, I think, within a week of each other. And both games have clearly seen that like there's one deck or like one kind of deck that's doing too well. And I think it's nice to just have that
Address
like,
it.
yeah, it's happening now. Deal with it. Like, let's have some fun. That we don't want to lose players because of a toxic metagame. I really liked the way they did a live stream about it, and I just got to actually like see the faces of the devs and them talk about it, and then just hold their hands up and say, "Yeah, look, we got it wrong.
Yeah.
Here's what we were trying to do. This is what we got wrong." I thought it was a really good way of handling that communication with the community.
Yeah,
No, I think
definitely agreed.
that's. I mean, I've been dealing with FPG games for a long time now, and I think this is a very good progression from where they came from. Like
Yeah.
being this open and honest and having the devs on streams often addressing these sort of things. It feels very good to me, at least. I like
Yeah.
it.
As far as I can tell, it's also a good progression for the dev teams at FFG. It's my first game from them as a publisher. So when I first started out playing Star Wars Unlimited, I got a bit scared because people would just tell me about how they've abandoned game after game over the years. But so far it seems pretty good, and they've been tackling the issues a bit differently. And I also saw that we got some more info from one of the judge streams the other day, where they seem very dedicated and have some long-term plans going already for the game. So I'm very excited to see where it's heading.
Yeah. I think that's almost already transitioned us into talking about comparing Star Wars to other CCGs. I think it's quite interesting to hear from people that's been different long times in the game now, and especially you, Speci, joining this recently. Um, to what extent does general card game knowledge actually translate into Svu? How much of it is a novel kind of mechanical uh, composition, and how much is just like, yeah, I know that. Like, how do you
I
feel, guys?
Yeah, I would say. So I'd actually been speaking with someone that's like a game designer on a different card game about Star Wars Unlimited, and they kind of said to me that they think it's like a game where if you've got really good card game fundamentals, you can do quite well at quite quickly. And I was like, kind of interested to see if that's true. And I think I definitely found myself picking up a lot of the skills quite quickly. But the biggest thing that took me a long time to really work out, and I definitely still didn't master it, is knowing exactly what cards my opponent has, right? Because obviously you can focus on doing your own thing, you can focus on building your own deck and all that sort of stuff. But when your opponent's smuggling out cards which let them attack and give them 2 extra attack, you have to kind of learn that the hard way, right? And you can only learn that through playing. But I did find that a lot of the fundamental skills had a lot of overlap with some different card games I'd played, but I also found it to be like a really unique game that very much rewarded optimal play, right? Like if you do one little thing wrong, it felt like very punishing. And what I loved most about the game was how tight a lot of my games felt, and that when I lost, I was often looking back and thinking, okay, if I did that one play differently, something different could have happened. So I really enjoyed learning the game a lot. I have to say, I was really, really impressed.
to me, what really stands out is even though so much looks so familiar, like even down to the keywords, they are very much the same keywords you would find in many other card games. Like, of course, they're named slightly differently, but you have First Strike. It's just called something else, and you've got like ambush in this game. Well, it was called something else in another game, but it's still there. You got trample, but it's called something else here. You got taunt is called sentinel. You know, it's
Yep.
the same things. You, if you know some card games, you can pick up on so much so easily, but then the things that are different, they are in the details, but they have a huge effect. Like, especially to me, I feel this I go you go,
Yeah.
where you do one action at a time, that it doesn't look like such a big thing, but it changes the game so much. And that to me is like the big thing why I'm so hooked by this game. I think you have this sort of transparency, almost like in chess, where everything, all the information for my move now is available to me. There's no hidden information when I'm taking my action. There might become some hidden information for me at the later stage. I can't see the future, but I can see all the things that are relevant to this decision I'm making right now. And that's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
You used to play Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that, Stephen, right?
Pokemon, yeah. I played Pokemon for about a year until I tried out Star Wars Unlimited for the first time, and I just my birth was just taken away from me almost because of how different it was. I don't have too much experience with other games, but from what I know, Pokemon is very different to a lot of the current like popular games, in the way of how turns pass between players and how you sequence your actions and so on. So that was also just very refreshing. And I don't think I was too committed to the game. It didn't really strike me, but I've always had this love for Pokemon, so it was just fun playing with the cards, right? But when I tried out Star Wars, it was a mix of both the game being so fun and also this love for the franchise that I've known my whole life. And as you said, it was definitely this thing about going back and forth between the players all the time. Because in Pokemon, you essentially do whatever you can, and when you are out of moves, you will declare an attack, and then it's your opponent to essentially do the same, right? So it was much more interactive, and
Yeah,
that's super fun.
I think probably Pokemon in many ways are much more different from many other card games
Yeah.
than what Star Wars is. Like, I remember listening to your stream, Speci, when you were talking about the claiming initiative and how that reminded you of a structure in another game, and that you just could get your head around it because you remember the mechanics of it. And I think that's true for so many things in Star Wars. That there's a lot of things that are like the best parts of other games, and they just combine them together. And I truly think that they've done that in a really cool way for me.
My favorite two parts of the game is definitely that, like, when I say pass and I'm not claiming initiative, like that's very satisfying. I like that a lot. And the other thing I really like is drawing 2 cards a turn. That feels good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So frustrating in so many cards games when you don't get cards. It's a card game. I need cards in my card game.
Yeah, I actually dabbled a little bit on Lorcana as well before committing to anything new after Pokemon, and it didn't really catch me. I was trying to convince my girlfriend to play some card games because she's a huge fan of Lilo and Stitch. So I was like, okay, maybe we can, maybe this is the bridge for us to like join in on a new hobby. But yeah, it felt very, I don't know if punishing, but yeah, you only draw one card and you still need to resource. So going into Star Wars where you actually draw 2 cards, so you can still get new cards to play while still getting building up your resource pile was just a very good angle to it.
Yeah. I think like Star Wars has only been around for a year now. And they're trying to become this serious competitive game. They're really trying with this year zero, season zero, to try out and see where they and how they want to do things in terms of organized play. So in your experience and compared to other card games, where do you think Star Wars stands now, and where do you see Star Wars in the future as a competitive game? Are they doing anything right when it comes to how they organize events and that?
I think there's still a lot of wiggle room for them. I know that some people have been quite harsh on them, both with promos for some of the events and also how the sectors have been run and all that kind of stuff. They've already been out saying that, hey, we know that some of the things were not optimal with the logistics, and that they will take into account what cards should be the promos for planetary qualifiers and so on going into the future. So I will cut them some slack for now. They seem to really look into the feedback that they're getting. It's still season 0. They are pretty active also with these suspensions that we're seeing. So although the game might be frustrating at times right now, I have faith that they will be able to keep it running for quite a while.
Lorcana's been around for what, 2 or 3 years now?
Yeah, it's about 6 months more than Star Wars, something like that.
Yeah.
So about a year and a half.
Do you feel that like 6 months ago or so, Lorcana had still trouble figuring out what kind of promos they should have for different kinds of tournaments, or did it run more smoothly there, you think?
Great question. Lorcana's a weird one because season 1, I would say, went pretty successfully. There was like a lot of big events comparable to sectors, but we are now kind of in a unknown zone where we haven't really got announcements for season 2. So I think that they're experiencing their own issues where they went at it and, it went well at first, but then maybe they're wanting to take a break and reel in. But I have to say my experience of the Star Wars event as a competitor was really positive. I thought the event was run very well. The communication from OPE, who ran it, was really clear. I mean, from my personal perspective as well, I was asking, can you put me near a plug socket? Can I use my recording equipment? And they were really accommodating of that. So for me, that was really positive. I have to say, I love the playmat. I was really a big fan of the Poe Dameron playmat that I got. That was nice.
With the big participant thing on it?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I like that. I might rock up to some Lorcana events of that, honestly.
Yeah, I've heard different opinions on the text, but the image is stellar. That's
a banger.
That's a banger. I agree.
You sure are making me excited. I agree with most of what you said, Speci. There were overall the communication was clear, especially for the intro of the event and also in between the rounds. I was never in doubt of how much time there was left when the new round was going to begin and so on. There were some logistical issues for especially the Milan tournament. I read today that apparently some of the participation promos and so on got caught in the customs. So of course we were a bit disappointed, like the first news while we were sitting and waiting for the round 1 to begin. Oh, by the way, you won't get anything this weekend, more or less. But of course that's one of the things that they will have to reflect on and figure out how to fix in the future. But so be it. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long until we receive it. They're going to ship it out to all the participant.
And that's I mean, that's fair. They are actually sending it to people. They're they're taking on the expense to do that. No, I think it is year 0.
They're doing what they can to accommodate for the mistakes that they inevitably have to make.
Yeah. When it comes to the rules of the tournament rules rather than the game rules, how transparent do you feel these are, and how easy is it to adapt to these rules coming in from other games or just in general?
There was nothing for me that felt particularly difficult to grasp, different in terms of if I was in any doubt of anything, I just had to kind of call a judge and just double check, and that felt pretty smooth. There's definitely some interactions within the game. I think the one that was least intuitive for me is how when I'm attacking, the on-attack ability will happen first, and then the attack happens. But I kind of got used to that relatively quickly. So there was if I ever had a doubt, I think that was both Star Wars tournaments I went to, because I went to one in Malmo as well. I was really impressed with the judges of just being willing to help and quickly available.
Yeah. And when it comes to like coming in from other games, you might not even have noticed, but it's a new thing in Star Wars that you actually get points for drawing, and then having intentional draws be a thing. That was such an uproar in the community, and I was like, man, that's pretty common. I don't know a game that doesn't have the accessibility to intentional draws, and it's never been a problem in another game, I don't think. So how is this a big thing now for people? But is there anything like that, like in how Switch games are done, or in like points or such?
Yeah, I did actually want to mention that. Like, I think another thing I really loved about the tournament, compared with what Disney Lorcana tournaments do, is there was a lot of Swiss rounds. I think 13 in total, which really does reward like player skill in the long term. Whereas what happens with a lot of Disney Lorcana tournaments is it's usually 9 rounds of Swiss and there's just a top cut to 64, which means a lot of people are left on the bubble. A lot of people are left, if I won a single more game or, something like that, it could have been a whole different story. So I think that that's a positive as well, that like, I think the more rounds you can have, the better. Lorcana's also got an interesting one with the Swiss where it's basically a 2-game format. You don't do best of 3,
I've always
which
wondered
is
about that.
definitely controversial among some players. I personally like it a lot.
It's very novel, at least.
Yeah, I'm definitely more on the commentary side than competitor for Lorcana. I've only competed at one of the events where I've commentated like 6 or 7 of them. As a commentator, I love it because you get to see, you in theory get more rounds. As a player, I actually quite like it because the die roll at the start of Lorcana is very impactful. And that's another thing actually that's so good about Star Wars is I love that I'm rolling the die at the start of the game and my opponent actually might want to go second, depending on what deck they play. That's really, really nice that there's not just this, it's always best to go first. And that's really enabled by like the back and forth nature of the game. So that's something I really like.
Certainly. I think we've already started touching upon like the Milan and Liverpool sectors, and like I said in the intro, I'm so curious about like your experiences of these events. Just briefly, like what is your biggest thing like you're taking home with you as a memory or like as an experience from these events? What about you, Steven, going to Milano?
For me, I think it's always about the memories and just spending time with friends abroad. It's incredibly fun competing. It's fun prepping for these big events and finally being able to hopefully capitalize on the work that you've put into testing and playing. I know Jonas is gonna behead me for this because I wasn't putting that much effort into prepping for Milan. Unfortunately, I didn't do that great either. But so much have I learned. But yeah, it's even if you do bad, you still have some friends from home, hopefully, that you've traveled there with, and it's just fun to experience it together.
Yeah. Did Jonas come with you? Yeah, I think he did, right?
Yeah, he went as well.
Did you also prep together?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So
as much as I had time for, at least, which
in
his opinion was nowhere enough. But I agree.
Yeah, that's cool. So how did you? What do you bring with you from going to Liverpool, Speci?
Well, I have to say I didn't quite do as well as I hoped. Unfortunately, I got a little bit sick on the day, which certainly didn't help either. But I had probably the thing that sticks out actually is the 2 games which knocked me out of the tournament. So I started off 0-1, round 1 queued into a Django showcase game, and it was not the best start.
What did you play, Speci? Actually,
I played Luke Skywalker from the new set with ECL, so it was a homebrew.
Awesome. Yeah,
it's the same you played in Malmo.
Yeah, but I improved it quite a bit by then. I was pretty determined to play a deck I built myself because that's just what I do on Lorcana. It's very much it's the thing I liked about it most. Honestly, the thing I enjoyed most about the experience was the few days before Liverpool. I had a couple of days where I literally sat playing Star Wars for 12 hours straight, and I loved every second of it. I don't get to do that too often these days, right? Usually I'm like having to do other bits, but I cleared my whole week and I was like, my job this week is to play Star Wars, and I loved it. It was great. And I was really happy with my deck. Unfortunately, the reality was, and I kind of went in with it saying like, okay, I need to beat Django. And realistically, my deck just couldn't do it consistently enough. Like I think my opponents could play suboptimally, and if they drew half decently, I was going to be in a lot of trouble really. So that was a problem. But after going down 0-1 to Django, I went on a win streak. I got up to 4 wins, 1 loss. And it was at that point that my tournament run ended because I went back-to-back losses in 2-1 games. But they were so good. I lost to a guy playing Darth Vader who ended up finishing like in the top 30 or so. He did like a post on Reddit that you might have seen. He was playing like the new Darth Vader. And it felt very thematic, you know, like his Darth Vader was spawning TIE fighters. My Luke Skywalker should probably have been pinging them, but I didn't quite cotton on to his deck so much. I won game 1. I made like a really nice ECL play like early in the game with like a red 5 and like 2-for-1 some of his things. But then in like game 2, he just kind of took it away when he was going first. And game 3 hit the most disgraceful curve I've ever seen, where he had like overwhelming barrage, cleared my whole board on like turn 5. It was
that's always awful.
Handshake, it was done. And then the following game, which knocked me out, was against Gar Saxon, and that was a 2-1 loss. And that's the game I've been playing back in my head, where I'm like, I wonder, like, even going back to like what cards I put into my resources, because I was 1 instance of damage away from being able to clear their entire board, and I just couldn't quite do it because they ended up playing like they had 1 card in hand, 3 resources, and it was a 3-cost ship with a shield. And so I just ended up being like, I had my Luke as a pilot attached, but I was 1 instance of damage from being able to clear the board. And that just meant that they were able to take the win. But it's those fine margins which have really got me like wanting to go back for more. So that was probably it. Like, even though those were the games that knocked me out of the tournament, I'm really glad it wasn't against Django, because I have to say that was a really miserable experience playing against that deck. But when you see the vast amount of variety, I think apart from the 2 Django decks I played, I think every other leader I played against was something different. And I really, really loved that. Like a lot, I was reading cards and, what does this leader do? That was really cool.
I think like if that's the main thing you remember from a tournament, then you've had a good experience, right?
Yeah.
Like if the games that you were so close to winning is the thing that you bring with you, then that's why we're in the card game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's also one of the things that I really appreciate about Star Wars Unlimited, because of course you have a few decks on the top, you always will, but in some games that's just all that's played. But I feel like in Star Wars, at least, you have these 3 or 4 like top decks, but it feels like every other leader has a chance. Like, they're just beneath the surface, they still have a shot at actually pulling through.
Yeah, and I mean the A+ tier is so huge in Star Wars. Like the S tier is about what it is in any game. But the A+ tier is much bigger than you'd think, I think.
Yeah.
And then of course there's, Akbar. It's just not going to do it. That's cool. So I'm planning to go to Worlds or Galactic Championships I'm going to quiz you guys or sort of pick your brains here to see what I can expect. So what did you think about the price wall and how that worked? Was that well run? Was it how did it work for people that didn't even go? What is the price wall?
I can give a bit of an overview on it. So there were quite a few like side events. I think for people playing the main event, it was satisfying enough. You could play everything from what did they call it, premium cups, which were essentially like smaller Swiss tournaments. You could also go for some Twin Suns games or some constructed, even smaller again, like tournaments, or you could do draft and so on. They had a premium cup on the first day after the 4th round, I believe. So if people didn't do it so well and they decided to drop early, they did have the chance to actually still play like a higher tier event, right, for the rest of the day. And then they had 2 premium cups on the day 2 for the people that didn't qualify. So obviously those were the big side events. And you would get tickets for each win. So they were 4 rounds each, and you would get 400 tickets per win. If you would go undefeated, you would get another 400. So 1 win 400, 2 wins 800, 3 wins 1200, and then if you manage to go 4-0, you would get a grand total of 2000. They had a few things on the prize wall. Not the most satisfying stuff. They had some pins, which were super cool, but they were a bit pricey, in my opinion. They had some regular boosters for like 100 tickets each, and that was perfect. Like then you could buy something big, and for whatever tickets you had left to spare, you could just like splendid on some single boosters, right? They had from all the 4 sets. Then they had the playmats, which were probably like the big prize for most people. They were priced at 2000, so you did need to either play a lot of the side events or to do pretty good in some of these premium cups that they had. And I think the last thing was some t-shirts, which I feel bad for even mentioning. I think they had a black t-shirt and a gray t-shirt just saying Star Wars Unlimited on them. There was so much potential. They were 1400 tickets, so almost at the level of a playmat, but it wouldn't feel good to go home with one of these. I think you could make that yourself almost.
Did you have the Carbonite boosters on the prize wall in Milan?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, they did also have the Carbonite boosters. So
that was what I spent my tickets on.
Yeah, I assume that they had an equal amount of numbers of like the different boosters and prizes among the sectors, but they sold out during day 1, I think, in Milan, and people were quite upset about that.
Yeah,
on day 2, because suddenly you would have to almost rush to spend your tickets as soon as possible instead of being able to just save up and then have an overview at the end of day 2, right? See, okay, what can I afford? The Carbonite were 500 tickets as opposed to the 100 for the regular booster. So I think about the same like price relation as to whatever they would cost for real money, right?
Yeah, about halfway through on day 2, they still had the Carbonite boosters because my friend I was with, he was in Milan. And was like, yeah, they sold out last week. Let's go check. But they still had them like halfway through the afternoon on Sunday. So maybe that's something they learned, that those were more popular than they maybe planned. I did one side event. I did like a draft, which I hadn't done a Star Wars draft before, but it came with a Carbonite booster as well. And it was fairly priced. It was like, I think I paid £40 and it was for a Carbonite and 2 normal packs, and that and for a draft, and I got tickets. That was pretty fair.
You used the Carbonite for the draft.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Wow,
that's They did also have a Carbonite draft for the Milan event, but that was, I think, was 80 or 90 euros. So you would have 3 Carbonite boosters for the whole draft, right? But interesting to do like just 1 Carbonite, and I assume 2 jump to light speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I got completely wrecked in the draft. Oh my days. Never mind.
Do you, just as a small side note, do you have similar events in Lorcana as a draft? I know that there's some sealed where you can mix and match your deck, but
you can do sealed and draft in Lorcana. It's not quite. It doesn't work quite as well. I think Star Wars lended itself pretty nicely with I liked the process of drafting the leader early, and then you can see what the people next to you are. Whereas Lorcana, you're basically able to mix every color together for the draft, which makes it feel less engaging, to be honest.
Yeah,
I really liked the sealed aspect of Star Wars, even though, like I said, I got wrecked. It's because I was maybe anticipating the format to be a little bit slower. I drafted a lot of 5 and 6 drops, whereas what I found the meta to be, if I was to do another draft, I think I would have drafted a lot more 2 drops and tried to go a bit wider and that sort of thing. So I think it was just, I think I went 1 and 2. I managed to scrape a win in my last game, so it could have gone worse, but I think I lost by turn 4 in the first round. My goodness.
So what would you like if you had to give me a brief on how to spend my days at Worlds? Should I if I'm doing really poorly in the tournament, is it a good idea to drop and start playing side events then?
I mean, you're in Vegas, so you could always leave the hall completely. That is an option I have to mention.
Yeah, for sure. But thinking that I'm actually going to stay in the convention center, were the side events did they feel like a really well organized thing or well thought through?
at least the cups were definitely like they felt almost as a planetary qualifier, and there's a few issues with how the side events work and in relation to the main event. I think I hear a lot of people complain about that you don't really get rewarded for playing the main event through.
Yep.
So, and that was a point for me as well. Like I didn't do very well. I went 2-3. So at that point, I was already out of day 2, right? And I was considering already then, should I just drop and do something else? I decided to play one more and get even more tilted for some reason. So I went 2-4 and then I dropped. But that was too late for the side event, right? So I was just chatting with my friends in between the rounds. But it would really be nice if for each round you played, get X amount of tickets, or
Yes.
each win at least. Like, because
Mm.
even if you know that you will miss day 2, if you go 0-3 or 2-3 or whatever, you will still be able to earn something from the main event. They could do something like for each win you got in the premium cup, you would get 400 tickets, right? So then if you end up making a good comeback, I know that Jonas, he I think he started out 1-2 or 1-3, and he ended up going 6-3, just barely making day 2. But it would be so cool if he got rewarded for making like this huge comeback, right? So I agree with that take. It's a bit of a bummer. Yeah.
I also heard like someone made top 64 and their prize was like 5 packs. It's like that's not really on. You spend your whole day playing and you get
You're
5
playing-
packs. Like give them some give them some prize tickets and they can get a playmat or something. Like at least
get some more promos.
And then if if they want to get packs, they can. But come on, 5 packs for top 64. I think that's really poor. If I'm honest, I think that's one thing that, as a direct comparison, that Lorcana's definitely done very well. Is that the prizes that you would get for like a top 64, top 128 finish would be, it's just a card, but it would be, market value. You'd be able to sell it on and make some decent change from it. Whereas, I think like Steve says, like if you're playing in the main event, you really want to encourage your players to stick around and play as much as possible. You don't want to be sat like where someone starts 1-3 and they're already like, well, I guess I have to drop now. Like you want your players to still have something to work towards, and you should be encouraging people like that have spent money on this event to have stuff to work towards, right?
Yeah.
And prize tickets would be a good way of doing that because, I think like the playmats for me felt quite unachievable, even though I played like pretty much the whole day. I dropped for the last round on the Saturday and I played a side event. I still only had like 500 tickets, right? I wasn't getting even close to a playmat ever, despite playing many, many hours of Star Wars. So I think I think it would be nice to see. I'm sure like the top prizes are very good, but maybe like moving forward, it might make more sense for the very top prizes to, I don't want to say like be lowered, but like there needs to be some sort of like the lower prizes need to be pulled up basically closer towards the top, really.
Yeah. Get more just for participating and playing.
Yeah.
Like you say, the tickets, if you get rewarded tickets for winning a game or a match in the side event, how is it that you're not awarded the same amount of tickets in the main event?
Exactly, yeah.
That would make sense to me at least, but yeah.
And I will say like the participation stuff that was given was maybe why, like getting a playmat for participating, that's definitely not something that you have in Lorcana. And I think it's a great playmat. I do just think that I think especially for those people that like made day 2 or like very close to day 2, just to be like walking away with a few packs, like that's the kind of prize I would expect at locals,
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know if now that I think about it, like the participation prizes do seem nice. Like you got a playmat, you got a medal, initiative token. I hope it's cool, but I still think they could improve a bit on it. And I think us that went to Milan only might be a bit more salty about it because we didn't even get it yet, at least. So it feels like even less, right? We most of us went home completely empty-handed,
right,
for the time being.
Yeah. So, what do you think about like the venues and the organization? Do you like the time between rounds and all that? Was it running smoothly? Was the venues proper? What was it like?
I think the logistics of the Milan sector were very thematic. It was the venue could have been better. There was this big, what do you call it, like mess hall venue building, right? And
Mm.
walking towards it, we were like, oh my god, that, like, it looks nice. And then we get there and there's this huge tent, quote unquote, next to it, and apparently that's where we're supposed to play. So like it wasn't just a tent, right? It was some kind of construction, but it was thin walls. Like at some point I was looking just directly up and I could see like birds walking on the roof of this tent-ish building, and I was just imagining the Marauders map from Harry Potter, because you could just see the footsteps appear and disappear from the birds. And also the venue was very very close to one of the airports in Milan.
Oh.
So we made, like, it didn't take us long to make a lot of jokes about a plane dropping by. Oh my god, Django played triple dark raid. He found Ruthless Raider. So
Gotcha.
we were a bit frustrated about that. I think getting into the rounds, getting to play, made it a bit better, but it was a bit unfortunate when the judges had to make announcement at the beginning. The speakers weren't too great either. The information was good, but it was a bit troublesome with the sound overall. But time in between rounds, if you finish 2-0 in your games, you would have a lot of time over, like left, I think.
Was there a lunch break?
Yes. We had I think half an hour or 45-minute lunch break between round 4 and 5, I think. So about the same time as the first cup would start at the day one. But I did hear that they didn't have one in Denver, or was it Liverpool's special?
We did have a lunch break, and it was
okay.
And much to its credit, it wasn't too long. I hate going to a card game tournament and you've got a crazy long lunch break. So I get it, you want to eat, but like also there's a lot of games to play.
Yeah,
that was possibly my only criticism of the venue, because it was a really lovely location in Liverpool, which is like quite a place close to my heart because I studied there. But it was a really nice location. The venue was really good. Everything ran smoothly, but I finished the main event on the Saturday and all of the food places at the venue had already closed. That was a little bit sad.
Yeah. That is.
They should be timed, right? They should know when the events end so they can keep open, right?
Yeah, there was like places nearby, but I would have just liked to have just gone to the because I probably wouldn't have dropped like my last round. I kind of had like 30 minutes left in the round because it was a quick one. I got 2-0'd by Django. And I looked over to the food place, it was closed, and I was like, yeah, I think it's time for me to go.
Yeah. So, we already talked a little bit about your games, but like, what was the meta like? It was somewhat varied, you said, Speci. How was it for you in Lana, Steve?
Well, after a few rounds, all of the top tables were a mix of what the two ended up being in the top cut, right? It was a lot of Django. After that, a lot of Quinlan, some Han ones as well. That was the big part. There were a few Piets, there were a few Anakins, and so on. I had prepared a lot for facing Django. I played Cat Bane Blue, as I've been doing for quite a.
Yeah, I mean, that's a signature of yours.
Yeah, me and Jonas have been playing that for quite a while now, ever since the launch of Set 2. And we felt incredibly comfortable going into the Django matchup. So I came to Milan. Maybe that's why I didn't prepare that much, because I was like, I can beat Django. I don't have to worry about anything else. I met one Django the whole day, and I lost because they just had hit every triple dark raid that they had. So it was, I mean, of course, I still feel like we had a good matchup, but it doesn't mean that you win every game, of course.
No.
So yeah, I also ended up playing a lot of different games. I played a Han 1 Yellow in the first one. I played against the Obi-Wan Green that went pretty far in the second round. Super nice guy, actually. I was a bit surprised by it, but it was a super interesting deck that he had, and I was happy to see that he progressed quite far after beating me up. But yeah, once I got a bit further down to some of the lower tables, they were much more casual meta, right? More Piets, more Darth Vaders, and so on. A lot of people trying to grind for these showcases.
Oh.
So yeah, definitely an established like top tier meta deck and so on, but still a good spread.
What did you face, Spezi? You already talked about facing a lot of different things. Was there something?
There's probably some leaders whose names I couldn't even tell you, to be completely honest. I played against 2 Djangos. I played against the Han 1, which I was able to beat. I played against Gar Saxon, a Darth Vader. I played against quite a slow blue base deck, but I couldn't tell you the leader. It wasn't the Palpatine. It was maybe Bosk, might have been, which I was able to beat. And then I played against like some leader, which I didn't really understand what they were trying to do, where it was like coming into play and damaging healing everything and then damage everything by half.
Kira.
Yeah. Like at one point I had like a blue leader on the board that was damaged. And I was like, intuitively, you're going to be doing something about the fact that my character is damaged. So I should probably take this slightly bad trade, or I could just go to base. And I decided to just go to base, and it worked. Like they didn't do anything about it. Like I didn't really understand what was going on with their deck, to be honest. Like don't get me wrong, I think it was a good matchup for me. I don't think I got to see their combo pop off, but yeah, I definitely saw like a nice bit of variety. I think it was around the time where I lost the first round, and maybe that helped push it. The 3 or 4 rounds after that were all not so much Djangos really.
Yeah, they were all in the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that Django deck, oh my goodness, it was miserable to play against. Like, I just feel like I'm winning, feel like I'm doing so much. Like in my very first game of the tournament, I had game on board. I had I think it's called Outflank in hand, which is like Rebel Assault, but it's for any character.
Yeah.
I had like 4 characters on the board, like Bright Hope, my Luke Skywalker leader, Poe Dameron. Everything's got like a lot of damage sunk onto it. And then they play like some card I've never seen before called like AT Super 7, something like this. It's not called that exactly. But what it does is it deals indirect damage, like 5, but then every damage counter on one of my cards makes it lose
Radiant
power.
7, yes.
Yeah.
And suddenly I didn't have lethal anymore. And then the next time they play like Devastator and I lost. I was like, brilliant. I thought like I could taste the victory. And then, and then in game 2, I just got creamed and I started off 0-1. Yeah.
Snatching defeat from the Orsa victory.
Yeah.
Nah. Like I say home here watching the streams and there was some, especially when it comes to Milan, there was some controversy with a player essentially angle shooting, like playing really quick in order to move past a trigger and make it not be able to reverse that. And I think this has been, I've been playing FFG games for a very long time, and I think overall FFG games have tended to attract the kind of players that just don't do that very often. So this becomes actually a controversy in this matter, because my experience of playing at all the levels of events I've been to have been that even in the very top cuts, people are quite admirable, and they will let you get your turn worked out correctly, the way you want it to play out. They will give you time to figure out if you're doing something, like you're trying to make it work optimal. What was it like for you at this level of event? Were people more competitive? Were people more like locked in and less open to talk?
For me, it went downhill a bit quick, so I think it didn't take long for me to get to the tables where people were a bit more casual. So I don't know if you had a different experience personally, Speci.
Yeah, mine was all good, really. I had I don't want to go into it too much. There was like some messy play from one opponent, which I wasn't really too impressed by, but I was already out of the tournament at that point, so I just kind of, hopefully it was we were both out of the tournament, so I'd like to think it was just messy play. But obviously, as soon as you're doing like messy things like leaving cards on the table and that sort of thing, like it's always a bit dodgy. I think I'd like to think that they seem like a nice enough bloke. So at the time, I definitely was a bit suspicious of it. I'm not going to lie, but I also just didn't care enough to call a judge. Like I was already out of the tournament, So
yeah.
I've personally never had any issues with any opponents. Most of my matches are super pleasant to play, always having a good time, usually able to have a good laugh even, no matter like if it's going in my favor or not. But we have had some incidents now, both in the with the PQs of set 3, and there's also been some controversy and even drama, if you want to call it that, for some of the sectors. In Milan, we did see in the top 8 match that was streamed, one of the players played. It was a Django mirror. They were on 5 or 6 resources, I believe, and they both had quite a big board. They both had the leader deployed. Player 1 plays a triple dark raid, finds a war juggernaut. You know what happens. Everything gets pinged. I'm not sure.
Clapped, usually.
Usually, yes. I'm not sure how the verbal communication was going. Player 2 started putting damage on his units. Player 1 put the war juggernaut in play. To me, it was pretty obvious that he was thinking about like whether or not he should damage his own units, but player 2 immediately went on to like remove his first order stormtrooper, and then just almost immediately slapping down his own war juggernaut. But the problem was he was only at 5 resources, so he couldn't play it. So he quickly took it back to play a P58 Starfighter, but it just seemed to be to like catch him off guard a bit, and as you said, Victor, to move on with the actions, right? Because in Star Wars you can take back an action as long as there's hasn't been revealed any new information and so on. It's pretty lax with that. You can change your mind quite a bit if you want.
No, I think the other player was clearly distracted. He was shuffling the rest of the triple dark raid cards that he was going to put back, and he wasn't clearly paying attention. He signaled that he wanted everything pinged, and he was started shuffling the part that's going on. And like you said, I think he might have been thinking about pinging some of his own units. I'm not sure about that, but what the judge report afterward was quite clear, was that he had already during that game and previous games as well probably established that he would say ping and tap when he did it, and he didn't do this time. He just said ping all of this, or pointed to them, and then started with the cleanup of the round and proceed to do all these things. So the other guy like, oh, he just said ping and like fast, let's go. And I mean,
of course
it is angle shooting.
It's a valid argument, but there's no doubt ever that's what's going to happen, right? So it's just taking advantage of it being late, of having a long day, and it's just unfortunate, and it's not very sportsmanlike, right?
Right. I mean, there is no rule break here. No one has actually broken any rules.
Yeah.
Everyone has played within the set of rules, but so the judges are their hands within the confines of this. What the rules documents say at this point, they can't do much at all about this. And let's also point out to the fact that the guy that did this was 15-year-old. It's a very young player. He's in the top cut of the largest tournament ever of Star Wars.
Okay, I didn't realize that actually.
I don't like the way he did this, but I don't think we can be too harsh on him.
That's fair.
I think it's a really tricky one, like with the inherent back and forth nature of the game. Like I'm not that familiar with the rule book, obviously. So I guess the real question is, it's like, if the Django player said something like I don't know what the correct terminology would be, right? Like, I finished my actions. I don't know. Is there like a set word that you would say to signify that your action is done? Because he was still, I think, shuffling from the triple dark raid, right? Which would suggest that he's not done.
Yeah. And then it's like, it gets dodgy, right?
And if someone's then jumping in preemptively,
kind of,
I think that's, and for what it's worth, I don't actually personally, I'm definitely not a big fan of this kind of like angle shooting type stuff. We had like some controversy recently in Lorcana scene, and I made a big video about it where I was quite critical of a player. In this instance, though, like it's more of like a ruling issue, I think, than the player doing anything wrong. Because if I'm honest, I like to think of myself as a pretty honest player. If I'm playing in a top 8 game and I'm playing against a Django player and they don't say tap, I am not going to tap my own thing for them. Like that is their job to do it. The question is like with that like really quick playing, which I can also see like in the heat of the moment why you might do that. And I think that's a natural human competitive thing to do. It's more like I feel like the rules, maybe there was a bit of a grey area there where like there should have been some more protections for the Django player who I think clearly hadn't actually finished their actions.
It becomes a bit complex with these cards that do more things at a time, right? Because usually there will be a natural pause or it will just be a natural shift of action. I attack with my unit on your base. Done, it's you, right?
Yes.
But with a card like War Juggernaut, and especially when your leader and other cards can trigger as well, okay, right, I will play a card. I decide which units get a point of damage on the board, and also, oh, by the way, I can do even more. Personally, I play Cad Bane quite a bit, and there's also a few of these scenarios. For example, if you have a boss and you play McClunky, there's a bunch of triggers going on. I usually prefer to like, okay, I will play a card, and if my opponent might not be sure if it's them or not, I like to say that, hey, I'll just think about this. Like, where do I want to put the damage? Am I done with my turn, right? I play an Underworld unit. Will I trigger Cad Bane? I just need to think about it, right? At least just to make it obvious that, hey, I don't know if I will do any more. I need a moment.
Yeah.
I think like the thing that could have changed everything from controversy to just like good, would have been if he would have said, "Are you done with your action, or can I go?" If he would have just confirmed that I can go now, because then if he is shuffling his card and not looking that nothing was tapped, and just like then that's on him. Why weren't you paying attention to the game? Because he asked you if you were done. You didn't say tap. And he didn't tap things, just like you said, Speci. But as it stands now, he didn't notice even really that he was going for the action. Obviously, it didn't stop him. He could have, like when he slammed down the tank and couldn't play it, he could have gone, wait, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not done. He didn't do that. The other guy got to play the unit he could afford. So there is a little bit of room here. And we're talking about a 15-year-old. So like I'm in my head.
There's room for improvement and learning from.
Isn't there? But I'm just going to anyone listening now.
Yeah.
Be a good guy. Ask the other person if they're done with their turn. There's nothing in the rules that force you to do that, but just do it, man.
On the contrary, as a competitor at the highest level, saying that to my opponent, like, are you done? It's almost then it gives them an opportunity to like, oh, why are they saying that? Like, have I forgotten something?
No, but do it every time. Do it all the time. Establish that from the first thing. You're like, my action. Is it my action? Maybe
it needs to be something within like the rules of some sort. Because I think it's like a good point that Steve mentioned. It's like when you've got, I think, a leader in particular that can like exhaust at a particular moment, that adds like an extra layer of timing and decision making, which like isn't always naturally there at other points. So I don't think that like I definitely don't think that the person involved, I wouldn't say they did nothing wrong, but I think on this occasion I am not particularly critical of their actions. I think I definitely heavily feel for the Django player in this instance, and I just think that the judge called. Yeah, okay. I think that the judge call probably was not handled perfectly, in my opinion, but I obviously don't know the ins and outs. I think if you watch the tape back, it's quite clear they were still shuffling the triple dark raid back, which would mean that they haven't really finished what they're doing, right?
Yeah. Speci, I'll open up a whole other kind of worms for you. So since the War Juggernaut pinged every unit for 1 damage, and his first or their
Oh yeah,
Stormtrooper died.
Yeah.
yeah.
He tried to play another card, but already from that point there was an invalid game state because they
They
didn't.
forgot.
They forgot the mandatory trigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, that's a
So yeah,
whole other thing, and
yeah.
when I don't even know, I don't remember if they realized or not, or
No,
if
they
they did, then
didn't.
it was too,
No,
yeah. But
it
yeah,
was never
so
corrected.
multiple things happened that
Yeah.
maybe
It was
shouldn't
a
have.
messy
But
one.
There are problems with the whole situation, but that part of the problem falls on everyone. There were
yeah,
judges present at the table that didn't catch it either. So
definitely.
there are lots of troubles here.
I think
But
it's a good. It's probably a good learning experience, right?
right,
That's
isn't
happened
it?
now, and even the game devs can like look back on that and kind of
Think
reflect
what they
on: is there
want.
something else they
Yeah.
could do to try and avoid that sort of thing happening? Where it's actually a joke I have about one of the cards in Lorcana, where at the start of your turn, like if I've got this card, I get to draw when you draw, and I've jokingly played against this card sometimes where I slam my first card down so much they don't have time. I'm like, unlucky, you missed it. But I'm like joking with a friend. But that was like this, but not a joke at all.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that they will somehow incorporate into the rule books some lines about sportsmanlike conduct, right?
Right.
Coming from Pokemon, rules were very very strict. There were no takebacks, and they also had some lines about basically just don't be an idiot, right?
Right.
There has been incidents of people calling for a judge on the smallest things, and although they were right about the
Yeah.
mistakes the other player made, it's just
It's
not
not
fun for
sportsmanlike.
anyone, right?
Mm.
So the player that made the offense would get a warning or
Mhm.
punishment, but so would the person calling for the judge, because the
This
judge was
is
also
it's
like,
not
"Come
it's
on."
in bad faith.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. Right.
So I hope we'll see something like that. Maybe encourage people to stick up for each other, and just let's have fun, right? As you said,
Right.
Victor,
For
let's
sure.
be good guys about this game.
I think so. All right. I think is there anything we need to add more about Milan or Liverpool at this point, you think? Or Denver for that matter?
No,
Let's
I
move
think we
on then, because
covered
we
it
do
pretty well.
have some really upcoming interesting things. Most of all, as I have you on here as a Danish person,
Yep.
and I know that can be challenging in some ways, but you have something coming up that is making me really excited. The 18th of May, game night in Roskilde, which is a town I have so many fond memories from. I've
Oh,
been to the
nice.
festival so many
Ah,
times,
yes, yes.
but Game Night is arranging the first European, to my knowledge, three
Hmm.
versus three team event, and I'm really excited. I'm really looking at. I'm actually more
Well,
excited about this than Lil right now.
you're coming for it?
I hope I am. I'm
Nice.
trying to arrange it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Please, what is this? What is the 3v3? What is Game Night? What kind of store is that? And because you know,
So I'll give a brief introduction. Game Night is a hobby store in Roskilde run by an Italian guy called Francesco, and he's just the sweetest dude. He cares a lot about the players coming there all the time, and he hosts some events, and he will come and sit down with us and talk a bit. And he is, I think it's the first time where I have, on multiple occasions, see the store owner sit down with people and teach them a game. Whether it be Pokemon, Star Wars, or One Piece, if you want to learn a game and you're interested in getting into one of them, he will sit down and teach you the game. And
that's
I
awesome.
was like, I saw that, I think, two in two of the first three times I was there, and I was just blown away. It was just so amazing to see, and I've done everything I could to support him since then. So if you haven't been to Game Night in Roskilde, pay him a visit. If you have the chance, he definitely deserves it. Moving on to the event, it is being organized and planned by a guy called Michael Muir.
Mhm. We will have him
He
on next week, I think, or for some of the upcoming episodes now.
nice. Yeah, and he is very excited about it, trying to get it, uh, trying to get the rules just right and so on. He did post them already on the event, and I'll see if I can remember them. So it is a 3 versus 3 team event. You will make a team of 3 people. You will have 3 decks. I'm not sure if one person is locked to a specific deck, or if you can swap it around during the day. I'm not sure about that, but you will have 3 different decks, and there are some restrictions that you can only use 3 of one legendary across your 3 decks, and I think it might be the same for rares or so on. So a bit of a restricted card pool, so you cannot just abuse all the best cards, right? And when you get matched, one team will be designated as the attacker. They will put forward 1 deck, I believe. The defender will then put forward 2 decks in response to that, and the first team will then ban one of them. So there will be some opportunities to counter each other, right?
It's kind of the same format they used in Atlanta then.
Maybe, yeah. I saw some about it, but I didn't get to
Yeah.
follow it. But it might be similar, yeah.
Mm.
And then after the first pairing of decks has been made, there will be 2 decks left on each side. The attacker and the defender positions get swapped, and you will do that until there's just the 1 pairing left. So
Right.
seems super exciting, and I'm very curious to like plan for this as well.
Yeah. It's going to be. I really hope to be able to attend. We do have some more events coming up a little bit sooner than May. So we've got next weekend, or actually now, if you're listening to this Thursday, it's going to be Saturday the 12th. We have the Cantina Brawl, the 3rd Cantina Brawl in Skövde coming up, and I think a lot of us from the podcast will be there. We're going to live cast it, so you can, if you're not attending, you can watch it. So yeah, please pop in either to play with us or watch it. They always, when you look at Monatorsk in Skövde, the price structure and what they give out for the events is just top notch. I think it's a display of Carbonite, a full display of boxes, I think, or I might be mistaken here, but it was really good pricing as always. When you look at that store, they are really committed to Star Wars Unlimited, and it's just the best place to play. I love that place. And then week after, we have the Sweden's largest gaming convention, GothCon in Gothenburg, and we will be there. We will be doing a live pod. So next week you get 2 episodes of the Nordic Takedown. First, Jason's going to do the regular pod, dropping Thursday, and then Saturday, the 19th of April, we will have a live pod from one of the rooms at 4 p.m. in I can't remember which house we're going to be in, but you can come in, be in part of the audience. We're going to have Q&A as part of the cast, and we're going to have like a town hall discussing things with the audience at place, and we hope to get someone from Enigma join us as a guest, but that's not completely cleared yet. We're working on that, but please, if you're in at GothCon, drop by. We're going to have some Twin Suns games popping up after that. Going to bring some extra decks so people can borrow, and then you can listen live at YouTube if you're not able to make it.
You will be streaming the episode as well.
Yeah, they'll be
live?
streaming it live
Awesome.
on YouTube, and then it'll be put up to all the other platforms afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the weekend after that, the 27th of April in Stockholm, there's going to be the big card expo again, and we're going to have a SWU event at that. I have very fond memories because I took down the last one. Also, pretty good price structure there. So yeah, looking forward. That's
I actually
really
should
nice.
be there.
You should.
I should, because I'm going for some Lorcana on the Saturday, and I think the Star Wars is on the Sunday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I didn't buy a ticket yet, so I need to do that.
Yeah,
hopefully it didn't sell
go
out.
ahead. They're not. No, they haven't sold out. Please join us. It'd be awesome to have you there. It's it was a really nice venue, and the people running it, it's Philip and Nicola are going to TO it as usual. They're awesome. They TO most events in Stockholm area, and they're just the best guys. So yeah, please join us for that one. It's going to be super fun. Those are the 3 most closely upcoming things in April, and yeah, I really hope to be able to get to Roskilde in May, because 3v3, man, that's going to be so fun.
Seems like such a cool format, and I'm very excited to try it out. So really hoping that we'll see some people also not from the local area.
Yeah,
there's some really sweet prizes as well. There's some Carbonite boosters for some of the top placements and some nice participations as well, I think. So should be worthwhile for a day trip.
Well, I hope to see as many people as possible around these all these events soon enough. But I think that's enough for today, right? I was so happy to have you guys on. Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
I have two
Yeah.
small ending notes. First of all, I just really want to encourage people to go to some of these bigger events, even if you're not a competitive player yourself. For me, it's just some very good memories. You will play a whole day and evaluate with your friends and just have a good time, and then maybe in the evening you will go out with this big group ride, and it will just be special because it was only for this weekend.
Right.
And the second thing is that I want to know, what is Speci's future in Star Wars Unlimited now?
Oh
Ooh.
yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. Good question. I would definitely like to commentate some events. I think commentary is like what I enjoy most for games. But I plan on playing. I mean, I've already been sat here building some decks earlier today. Yeah, I'm definitely pretty excited to see how the meta shapes. I've got a ticket to play in Lille
Nice.
in like a month or so. So yeah, I'm going to continue to play, and I really have enjoyed the game a lot. So excited to see what it's like when Django doesn't exist. I imagine it's even more fun.
Yeah, hopefully.
Perfect. I know to bring you on to the streams when I need you then, Speci.
Nice.
So with that, I sign off from here. May the force be with you, and hear from all everyone in a week. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.